Steve, did you pick out your turkey yet? Are you hosting for Thanksgiving?
We are hosting. The turkey is in the refrigerator
Okay.
thawing as we speak.
I
But
just
yeah,
I was gonna make sure that you put your turkey in the refrigerator.
yeah.
How big of how many pounds?
Felt
You
like 12 or 15. It wasn't huge. We only have like 15 people. It's a small party this year.
okay?
So
Okay.
it was probably 12, 15 pounds.
I feel like I maybe bought too large of a turkey this year because it's just gonna be me and then my mom getting the leftovers that I don't want of leftovers. So
So how big did you buy?
14 pounds, I think.
Your mom will have some leftover.
Yeah.
That's great. Does she like leftover turkey?
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. Like I think she prefers leftovers as opposed to
Well, then there you go. You did the right thing.
so.
I'm
Um,
sure your mom always thinks you do the right thing.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Anyways, this is the Stuff Summer Says podcast with
Steve.
Steve. Wait, I have a follow up. Back to the turkey real quick.
Okay.
Are you gonna use your new toy? Are you gonna use your smoker?
No, I thought we were going to do the turkey. I thought it was going to be like a stand-up comedy. Yes, turkey and something
Okay.
smoked, but I was told no comedy, just turkey.
Oh,
So
okay.
no,
All right. Well, maybe
no.
next year. Maybe next
Maybe Saturday after the game.
year. Yeah, there you go. Maybe probably smoke some leftovers. I don't know.
Exactly.
Okay. Um, very exciting show for you tonight. We are joined by Penn State alum and current sports anchor Alex Walker. I almost said his other last name, which he will get to on the podcast because it's a part of his origin story, if you will. Great conversation with Alex. We've got a game recap, which was a pretty big game to talk about. We've got some other stuff to talk about. Steve's got a interesting point, I think, is what we're going to get into to go to. And then we also have another game to talk about coming this weekend, which is pretty important for maybe not necessarily what's happening on the field, but maybe in the stadium. So go ahead and take a little listen to Alex, and we'll be back after this. Steve, this is by far the most official backdrop of a guest we have ever had on this podcast, without a doubt.
We keep setting standards.
We keep raising the bar, and our guests keep raising the bar. Our guest this week is sports anchor for WFTV, the ABC affiliate in Orlando, Florida, and Penn State grad, and someone I would consider a friend, Alex Walker. How are you, Alex? How are you?
Hey, Aaron and Steve, how are you guys? I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Alex, I have so many questions for you. First thing I want to say, though, that I just need to inflate my own ego out of the gate. I know when I send a good tweet because Alex Walker likes it. That is the main way so I want to say right off the bat, I appreciate and very appreciative and thankful for that. So we'll get that out of the way first. But I guess let's start with what is your career journey, which is kind of our standard question. But how did you get to Orlando? Because I know you've had a crisscrossy, at least along the East Coast career.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, Darian. And listen, you guys put out great stuff. It's easy
Thank
for
you.
me to
Thank you.
provide the like engagement. But no, it's been a wild journey. It's been 10 years now since I graduated college, which is wild to think. And I always knew I wanted to be a local sports anchor in that affiliate role. And I've worked for every single affiliate, NBC, Fox, CBS, ABC, in different capacities. First job out of school, I interviewed in so many small towns in America. They always say when you're in broadcasting, if you want to be on camera, you got to move to a small place. And first ever job was in Sioux City, Iowa, market 150 as a weekend sports anchor. Um, the closest Division One school was the University of South Dakota. So we got to cover the Coyotes out there, but a lot of small colleges, a lot of high school. They were proud of their teams there. I did 2 years in Sioux City, Iowa, then did 2 years in Greenville, North Carolina, the NBC affiliate there, covering East Carolina, the Pirates, but also a lot of the ACC, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, about an hour and 15 away. So dived into that a good bit because a lot of good college basketball, good college football as well. After 2 years there, I did 4 years in Lexington, Kentucky, all things SEC, right there on the Bourbon Trail. Mark Stoops and the Cats, John Calipari, who no longer is there with his Cats, and a lot of horse racing. Got to cover Kentucky Derby. Um, got to cover a Penn State Kentucky Citrus Bowl, if you guys remember that, before I moved to my location now, Orlando, Florida, the ABC affiliate, Channel 9. Been loving it here. I've been here about 2.5 years. I love the sunshine. I love covering the Magic, Daytona, and all the good things that come here in the city beautiful, as we call it.
You said that you wanted to be a sports anchor regionally pretty early on, and why? Why was that a career path that you were very interested in?
Yeah, it's a great question. Both my parents and their families are in some extension in business, and I always wanted to do business school. I was almost went to Michigan, Virginia, but I had this revelation senior year of high school that I wanted to be a sports journalist, and um, I started a show called Gilliland on the Gridiron. I'm a I'm a Walker now, which is a on-air name, but I'm a Gilliland as that's what everyone at Penn State knew me as. Um, but I started a show called Gilliland on the Gridiron, and I would go to our high school football games on Fridays, and I would shoot the highlights. I would interview the coach and one of the star players after the game was over, and I would turn it around to air Monday morning on the announcements, and it became like this huge show. I mean, everyone's like, these like I'm a senior, these freshmen who I've never met before, like, you're the Gilliland of the Gridiron guy. And it just became this cool show. I just fell in love with going to games, Friday Night Lights, and telling a story for everyone to see. I mean, everyone goes to the games, but you don't see the highlights, unless you're a big school, which we were on the local news that Friday. And so it became a really cool show, and I fell in love with it. I did a high school basketball internship, found out about the John Curley Center at Penn State, and that really sent me on a path to state college. But that's how it all started, was Gilliland on the Gridiron, 14 years ago now, which is kind of hard to believe.
Okay, you brought it up. I didn't know if I was allowed to ask about it, but I do want to ask about. You did change your last name. I had to write down Alex Walker over here because I almost called you Alex Gilliland.
Yeah.
How did you pick Walker? Why also change your last name? I think that's very. Why have a TV name?
Yeah, no, it's if you look at all the people you follow on television, from the local affiliate level to network to regional networks, more people than you think have made up names. For me personally, I moved I moved to Sioux City. I packed up my Pontiac Torrent 2007, rest in peace. Died on the road one day in Lexington. Packed it up, drove 17 and a half hours to Sioux City, and I'll never forget. Jack Brooks was my news director. Awesome guy. Love him because he took a chance on me right out of school. Gave him my first job. I walk into the office on a Tuesday, and he goes, "Alex Jellyland, it's great to have you in Sioux City." I'm like, "Well, first of all, Jack, it's Gilliland." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's just something about it. Just I need you to change it." And I'm like, "Change what?" Like, he's like, "Your name." I'm like, "Okay, how does that process work?" He goes, "Okay, well, here's what I'm thinking. It's Tuesday now. By Friday, I need you to have 3 finalists, and we're gonna pick the name we think works best and go from there." I'm like, "Okay." So I do what I think is right, and I go into the friend group chat. I'm like, "Fellas, you have an opportunity of a lifetime here. You get you get to name me for my television career. So let's start hearing some names." And I told my parents as well. They were not pleased.
I was gonna, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I
go
needed
ahead.
to. That was what I
And
was going to ask
it's
about.
it's a family pride thing, right? And I always told my family that if I ever got to a place where I felt like I would be there forever, I would ask for permission to change my name back to Gilliland. And I've always had that, vision, but we'll see if that ever happens. But what ended up happening was, and I'll tell you my finalists because I still remember to this day. My 3 finalists were Walker, King, and Brady. And Brady, because the dean of the Schreier Honors College at the time, Dean Brady,
Yes.
Christian Brady,
Yes.
who I love. I just always liked Brady and Darnell Brady,
Yes.
good friend of mine as well. And I was like, I just like that name. So, anyways, what ended up happening was we had a producer at the time in Sioux City that was a friend of mine, and just like one day, she was a cool girl, and she would always walk by the sports office. She's like, "What's up, Alex Walker? I like that. Sounds good." I'm like, "You know what? It does sound good." I'm like, "Jack, it's Walker." And from that day on, it's been Walker. And it's never been hard to say, but it's just weird because everyone's like, "How'd you get Walker?" That's how.
Okay. I'm glad that we got to the bottom of that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So there's passion and persistence, right? From Gilliland on the Gridiron to support. A lot of people after their first or second market in your business are done, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just whether it's not fun anymore, whether it's the grind. Why are you still good at this, and why have you gotten to market whatever market number Orlando is?
Yeah, it's been a grind. And I tell students all the time, and people that want to get into this field, you have to be willing to miss holidays, work weekends, work late nights, work long amount of days in a row without breaks. And it's one of those things where, I started at market 150, went to 100, went to 62, and now I'm at 15 in Orlando. And one of the big things for me was I told myself the moment I graduated Penn State that my career goal at a local affiliate level is I want to get to a top 20 market and cover professional sports. That was my goal. And I wasn't going to stop until I got there. there were moments where I thought about stopping. Um, Not because I was up with it or fed up with it. A lot of it was just I just needed that opportunity. I needed someone to believe in me to reach this level, and I just couldn't. I put too much into this. My parents and myself, they believe in me. I have a lot of friends that believe in me. I just had too much belief and support behind me. I'm like, I got to do this, not only for them but for myself. And I don't want to bail out early and not get to a place where I felt like I truly got to a place where I could, deliver a great product in front of a large amount of people. Cover an NBA team, the Orlando Magic, has been amazing. But it was an investment thing. I love it so much. I love sports. I want to get to a point where I look around and things I'm covering. This is pretty cool. I'm covering the Orlando Magic in a playoff run against Cleveland. It's insane. They haven't won a playoff game in so long. I got to bring that to the people. Cover the Daytona 500. That's like a bucket list thing. The Kentucky Derby, a bucket list thing. So I just wanted to get to a point where every day I was going into work, like, man, this is pretty cool. And I still feel that to this day. They always told me the day you stop feeling butterflies before a live shot is the day you're supposed to hang it up. And I just did a live shot with the Orlando Pride National Women's Soccer League champions at a parade, and I was just, this is so cool. And so I still have that drive passion to this day. I hope it stays for a while longer.
Orlando's an interesting market to me because you have, as you mentioned, the Magic, and it's bigger footprint wise, and then you've got the Pride, and you've also got UCF there, but then you also
Hmm.
have like a little bit of smaller townish, I guess would be the best way to say it, particularly with the high school preps and everything like that. How do you, as somebody that's a sports anchor in one of those markets, kind of balance that in your coverage?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's a very interesting and unique market in the sense is we don't have this dominant force that's just leading at every point. In Lexington, it was all things Kentucky. Kentucky's the lead always. I don't care what sport, it's the lead. Here we have a lot of different mouths to feed, but that's a good thing. It's we get such a variety of coverage. We have the Orlando Magic NBA team, which is amazing, and then they've been incredibly successful. And then of course we have UCF, who just joined the Big 12 conference, and as a Power Five member, instead of playing SMU and Temple and North Texas in an American conference, they're playing these big time programs, which is awesome. Um, sure, they're gonna give us some light here.
Perfect. Look
How
at,
about
see,
this?
this is high
Thank
high
you.
quality.
You just, oh, look at that.
Wow.
Wow. Fellas, appreciate it. If you need me to hop off here, just yell at me and I'll just move. We'll be mobile. We'll be mobile here. But yeah, you mentioned it's from a professional thing. We have the Orlando Magic, we have the Orlando Pride. Orlando City is our Major League Soccer team now, 2 wins away from a MLS Cup. But yeah, and it's also a destination town, guys. I mean, we have the NCAA tournament here. We constantly are having events pop up. Orlando people love coming here for events, and so every day is different here. One day I'm on the south ends of an NBA game. The other day I'm, covering a semifinal of the NWSL playoffs. The other day I'm covering UCF at the Bounce House against Colorado and Deion Sanders. It's always different, which is one of the reasons why I like this market so much.
Who do you hear from? Like when who's looking for more coverage, right? You've got all those mouths to feed. Who do you hear from? Who are your, I don't know, the folks that are saying, "Hey, what about us?"
Yeah, we get it all the time. The more you jump up market size, the more people that are watching and emailing and what about us? And the way I always approach it is if someone's going to take the time to write an email to me, if they're nice about it, we have people that are like, oh, nah. If you're like, hey, listen, we have this great thing going on. We'd love for you to be, come down and tell our story. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take the time out of my schedule to go do that. And even like the other day we just had Daytona State. They just won the National Junior College Championship in women's soccer. Like that's something we wouldn't typically cover, but like I'll mention it on air. I'll give you some love because you deserve it. You won a championship, and we still cover prep sports big here. I mean, the talent in Florida high school football is unbelievable. So we have different towns always reaching out, like, hey, cover our game, and I'll do our best to get out there and give you some love. At least mention the score on the air. But a lot of mouths to feed, but it makes us operate at a higher level where we're trying to serve our Central Florida community as much as possible. We have some big counties here, so we try to get around as much as possible from here all the way to the coast.
For you, it's not just persistence, right? You got to be good at something to keep doing this. What are you best at?
It's a great question. I think the thing that I'm best at, and in your words, is just my passion. you know, part of TV is finding your voice. I look back at some of my stuff from college, and I like yell a lot. Like I'm like, man, chill. Like you're just in your living room. Like you don't need to be. Sometimes when a moment's so big, you feel like you have to be big as well. But you can kind of dial it in, find your voice. Like this is a huge deal, but like let's lock it in. And I think delivering passion to the viewers has always been big for me. It's like I'm not covering hard news. I'm covering sports. Sports should be a reprieve from a stress-led life and from difficult things. Like it should be able when you're looking at sports and covering sports, you should be happy. And so being passionate about what I'm doing, I think is a big plus.
Thanks.
What's something that the TV side, or sorry, what's something the general public gets wrong about the TV sports anchor?
Great question, Darian. I think one of the things is people think that we have like right before we go on air, we sit in this chair and they do our makeup and they get us all glammed up. No, I'm like at I go on the air at 6:23 typically for a 6 o'clock sportscast. At 6:15, I'm getting my tie tied and I'm getting the powder quick. And it's like it's a lot less glamorous than people I think make it out to be. That's not to say it's not incredibly enjoyable and fun, but people I think people think we're being primped and prepped behind the scenes, which is just simply not the case. The number of places I've done makeup in, I mean, I've there's been times where I've dropped my makeup, in like the back of a paper towel shoot in a bathroom. I'm like 2 minutes to air, and you're like trying to get it out. It's not as glamorous as they make it out to be. I think that's the one thing that's wrong. And the other thing is, I think people realize it, but like, we work incredibly late hours. I mean, we sporting events over at 10, but we got 11 o'clock live shots. We do stuff for the morning show, and then we're still getting things tied up. So it's a lot bigger of a time commitment too, I think, than people realize.
We had Tyler Feldman on, who kind of a contemporary of yours down in the Austin way.
Yeah.
He's about the same age as me, and Steve and I consume our media a little bit differently. And I think our generation is not necessarily tuning into the news the way we did like when we grew up, right? So how do you keep yourself relevant to all audiences, particularly the one that maybe isn't comfortable or didn't necessarily grow up with your role, not necessarily you?
Sure, and love Tyler Feldman, good friend of mine. After I left Greenville, he then took over my
Right.
job. So it was a really fun Penn State keep it going connection there. But yeah, that's a great question, and we're constantly trying to remain visible in as many spaces and in as many mediums as possible. And that is people aren't watching local news in the traditional sense as they used to. People are streaming it on their phones. People are watching it on the websites. People, it's at 11 o'clock at night. Um, People already know the score of the UCF and Magic games. They already know it. They already watched the highlights. So when I do a sportscast, what can I provide that they can't get elsewhere? And I think that's what kind of pulls people in. Like if I have a one-on-one with a player after a game you didn't see somewhere else, I tease ahead to that. We got this person, you didn't see it anywhere else. Or localizing things as much as possible. If UCF has a big win, RJ Harvey is their star running back. He's from Orlando, so try to localize it for the people. Hey, you went to school right down the street, and so just trying to what can I provide to you and contextualize that is different than what you can just see on your phone. And I think that's what brings people in. But we have to be present on Instagram. We have to be present on X. We have to. I'm not a big TikToker, but our weather center's right over here. Our chief meteorologist, is on TikTok for all these hurricanes, and he does a great job. And that's a great way to get people our age and younger who are on TikTok. Hey, that's Tom Terry, our chief meteorologist. I'm gonna watch the hurricane coverage now because I saw him on my screen. I want to watch him on TV now because I like it. So it's just finding ways to get ourselves in front of audiences in a non-traditional approach. And that's a constant battle in newsrooms with consultants, and we're constantly trying to answer that question that you just posed.
Does that give you more, I don't know if leeway is the right term, but more freedom for creativity then? Because you can also cut something up and throw it online?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do that a lot more. Is that there was a constant battle. Is like if we are giving you stuff early, like highlights, will you still watch later? It's like absolutely. I think if we are creative with the way we do things, if there's a great soundbite or a great play, we can give it to you right away to catch your attention and say, you want more of that? Watch us at 10 and 11. And that's how you kind of get people in.
So as you're going into a week like this, you got a Thanksgiving week. I mean, you got teams still playing, but what kind of content's going to work for you on a week like this when people are traveling? It's not even a normal week for local news, probably.
Yeah, it's definitely much smaller staff, and people are moving all over the country. And but the thing that's nice is, as much as people travel, we're in a market in Orlando where there are so many people also coming here for said holiday that are gonna turn on their sets and try to figure out what's going on. And we're fortunate, typically this time of year, we have all of our regional finals for high school football. We have Orlando City that's in the midst of an MLS Cup playoff run. We just had the Pride win the championship, so we're at a good. And the Magic are killing it. Franz Wagner is making an all-star push, and so we have a lot of active things happening where we can still be as active as we can this week. And people are gonna be sitting on their couches after being in food coma. So if you're just gonna flip on the TV and watch us, we'll provide some entertainment. And I try to do things a little different holiday weeks too, even with Christmas. Try to make it as light as possible. Just ease it back a little bit. Try to make it a little more. Ask players, what do you like what's your favorite side for Thanksgiving? That way it's when people are tuning in, it's lighthearted. It's fun to be a part of.
What actually want you to jump back in the time machine a little bit. 2014, 2013 era of Alex. What does the com radio crew that the brotherhood, sisterhood that is built, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to the people that are part of that kind of community at Penn State?
It's really special. You spend so many hours with those people, not only in class, but also at then Innovation Park, now our amazing new on-campus studio and multimedia center with the Belisario School. It's incredible. Every time I go in there, I'm just blown away at how blessed we are as Penn Staters. But yeah, I mean, the brotherhood and sisterhood is really special because not only do you work hard together there, but then when you see everyone branch out and start their own career paths, I still stay connected with a lot of Penn Staters. Some of those Penn Staters are still in the media space, some are not, but we still all keep in touch and help each other out. And if there are people younger than us that need help, we try to help them with job placement. But yeah, I mean, we all that bond you form in college in a media space, it sticks with you for a while. And we had a special group of people. And anytime a Com Radio member or PSN TV or Center County Reports in Orlando covering a story or doing something, I do my best to meet up. And even if they're people that I maybe didn't cross paths with as much, I still try to make it um for a Penn Stater. If you're a Penn Stater, I make time for you. That's how I do things. No matter how busy I am, if a Penn Stater needs something, I'm right there.
Love that. I love that. All right. You are a Penn Stater, so we got to get you out of here with a few questions.
Good.
You walk into the creamery. What ice cream are you picking?
The last two times I've been there, I've gotten it's so good. It's the sticky flavor
Yes,
that has
yeah,
like the actual pieces of grilled sticky in the ice cream with like a cinnamon
yeah.
roll ice cream flavor. Unbelievable. That and bittersweet mint are my two go-tos.
Okay, okay.
Love it.
You are the czar of Penn State sports for one day. What's your big change? Where are you starting?
I am putting Penn State basketball in rec hall permanently.
See, this is a common
No
thread,
hesitation.
and
Boom.
we might even talk about that later on the show. That's a great segue. All right. I'm interested to hear because I think every com radio person / PSN TV person has said this one answer. So I'm interested to see if the trend continues.
Okay.
You are back in town for one night and one night only. What bar are you walking into?
Pickles.
That was what I expected. That's what
100%. No hesitation.
That was Ryan Stevens said that. Tyler Feldman said that. I'm pretty sure. So yes, that is that.
Wait, I'm looking. I need some clarification. I love the answer. It's fair. It's one of the closest bars to where you work. Were you just too lazy to go much further, or was it a great place?
It's a great place.
Okay.
I think there's just such like a familiarity there with it. Just feels so comfortable when you walk in. Even all these years later, I've walked in as recently as over the summer. Man, it just feels great. Like it's just good people, cheap drinks. And I think the last time I saw Feldman and Stevens at Penn State was at Pickles. So great
Very
place.
cool.
Yeah.
I know you guys do well. That's the problem. All right, Alex, where can people find you, your stuff, and everything that's related to your work?
Sure, and it's all Alex Walker related, but it's Alex Walker TV on most things. So Alex Walker TV on X, Alex Walker TV on Instagram. Very active on both spaces and always love to connect. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Alex.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it.
Steve, I love the fact that you brought up the passion, because I think that is, and I mean this in the nicest way, you have to have something a little off, and it's a little bit of passion mixed in there to do the TV jobs, because it can be a grind and a roll. But when it radiates the way Alex radiates his positivity and his passion for it, it's clear and easy to see why he is where he's at. Um, and I think that stands out to me anytime that I've talked to, we've had TV people on, is the people that are passionate, the people that enjoy it. It shows to the viewer, and I'm appreciative of that. Most of all, I think would be the best way to say that.
Yeah, that energy. I mean, I remember that from him early in his career. Watching him do Com Radio or Center County Report, listening to Com Radio. That energy exudes from him, right? And I think people love that when someone's covering them as well. Like you talked about feeding all those mouths, they get that he cares and that he's not overlooking them or doing something else. He's going to cover them when he can, and I think that people sense that genuine passion and energy, and I'm sure his bosses appreciate it, and it resonates.
I think the other thing with Alex that pretty early on that I just from knowing him was he was always very professional, but he was professional and fun, I think would be the best way to say that. And I think that also is kind of helped him stand out and why he is where he is, and continues to grow. So I thought that was good. I thought the name thing, I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't know if we were allowed to ask about it. But yes, I knew Alex. Steve knew Alex. It's Alex Gilliland. So it's very interesting, very fascinating to hear how he picked the name.
It's a great story.
Yeah, I think it's funny. There's a couple other people out there in the world that I know that have fake names publicly, at least, and it's just very funny when you know them with a different direction. So yeah, appreciate Alex being open and honest about that. Okay. Let's move on to Penn State stuff. Let's start with a game recap. We both watched the game from home, but I think what we both probably took away from that game from home was James Franklin wasn't screwing around and went for it, and it worked out pretty damn well for him. I don't know that that's necessarily the singular best decision he's made as a coach, and like he said, even today, if it backfires, everybody's up as what about it. But I think it's one of the best decisions that he's made, and I think credit to him for rolling the dice, making the call there, and I think kind of what I hinted at and what I was trying to get to is one of my biggest gripes with Franklin, and it dawned on me after the Dominic DeLuca interception, and then in the juxtaposition of the block punt, and then Minnesota running the fake, or I'm sorry, Minnesota running the trick play, was there's been so many opportunities where Penn State could just go for the kill, and they haven't. And that was an absolute opportunity where they went for the kill, and it was worth it, and they got over a hump, and now the season isn't set back because of that. And now we're not sitting here wondering like if they're going to get in anymore. I kind of sort of think that they're fine to get in, even if for whatever reason they would lose to Maryland this weekend, which I do not think is happening. I feel much more confident than I did last week. And Steve tried to tell me I could take the weekend off, and I didn't take the weekend off. So that's about how I feel about the game. How does Mr. Samsel feel about the game?
We talked last week about, and earlier in the season too, about their confidence level, right? And I think there's a comfort level that comes with that allows them to do some of the things they did the last week. That play, some other thing, like in trusting the players. He talked about trusting the players on that play, right, to make that call. He said during the news conference today, hey, we called that half dozen times earlier this season, and the players got out of it because it wasn't the right look. So it's his comfort level with them and confidence in them that allows that to be called again and the right decision to be made. Yeah, some people will get tied up on, they didn't dominate them. They only won by 1 point. You know what? It's a W. That's all that matters. Go ahead and ask any of those 3 SEC teams if they just like to have a W as opposed to a pretty W, and they take the win. So, yeah, they did what they were supposed to do. They did it kind of how they were supposed to do it, right? I mean, there were a couple things. I mean, like the punt thing, and he explained that today too. Like they did for me, there's a part like, hey, just let the punter punt, let the quarterback throw, let the do it. But that's not who they are, right? They're flexible. They're showing you some stuff. They're putting stuff on film for somebody else, or it's part of their plan. they did what they were supposed to do. They'll do that again Saturday, and then we're going to see what's happening here that weekend of December when they're playing the first playoff game in Beaver Stadium.
I think the main thing, and maybe it didn't come up until you said it there, but I think the one thing that I haven't felt about this team all season long, going back to Wisconsin, even going back to West Virginia with the rain delay, is they haven't panicked. And I feel like a lot of other teams under James Franklin maybe have panicked a little bit more. I think you could make that case 2017, maybe 2019 in there a little bit. And I think that's what's impressive. And like I said, like you said, like, yes, they aren't beating the snot out of teams necessarily, or teams that they're supposed to be beating the snot out of, but a win is a win. And when you're not panicking about it, I think that's what's made this team feel confidently different this year. I would say would be the best way to say that.
And I think even during Franklin's tenure, the rules, some fans, and probably some older fans, have wanted to make the rules different for him than it was for some of his predecessors, right? Well, they're not winning pretty. They're not doing whatever. Let me tell you, in 1986, when they won the first national championship game, my freshman year, there were a lot of ugly games there, right? There were not a lot of offense, defense, special teams, and win the game. And people love that. Oh, look at that. Look at this hardworking team modeled after Joe doing whatever else. And that's not the response sometimes to this team, which it's just interesting to me, right? Like this is familiar Penn State football to me.
Yeah.
This is a team doing just enough. I mean, and they're very talented. They're
right.
They're much more talented comparatively than those teams were. But when they do that stuff, that's not unfamiliar to me. And I think it's unfair to try to say, well, why aren't they doing more? Again, ask Alabama, ask Texas A&M about, doing more. They would be happy just to do enough.
Right. And I think for as critical, I don't feel that you and I are necessarily critical, but I feel like we've been a little more critical than our normal selves this year, just because there's a little bit more pressure on him and this team to kind of get where they're supposed to go. But for as critical as some other people have been, which is too far critical in my opinion, I think I agree with that point of like, man, no, they just win games, and that goes back to the they win when they're supposed to thing. And I think that's the most important thread about Franklin. And I think that's maybe why, in light of what happened on Saturday, it was refreshing to see that, because that that it's at least there. It just maybe hasn't shown up in the exact right moments, aka what 3 weekends ago against Ohio State, that you would have liked to have necessarily seen it. It was just good to see some proof in the pudding.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Where do you want to go next? We have some future stuff, but you also had a spectator sports thing. So do you want to stay there and then go to the future stuff?
Because I think I can try to tie the spectator stuff into football to still make the transition about the other stuff.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So last week, right?
Yep.
The last men's home basketball game. The coach was complaining, hey, wait, our fans aren't loud enough. Our fans aren't making enough noise. Like, they're not supporting us. I mean, okay, yes. Again, and it came up in my class with my students, him talking about that, like, and I get it, but you won. The fans were as much there. Like, I guess, I don't know. It's a chicken and egg thing for me. And maybe that's where I want to go with Penn State basketball. It feels like a chicken and egg thing. Are they going to win before I support you? Or do you want me to support you? Because there's a lot of Lucy and Charlie Brown with that team's lack of success through the years, where people like start to buy in and then, oops, it doesn't happen. Like, I think Penn State basketball fans probably have a little bit of PTSD. Like, they're afraid to like jump on the bandwagon too soon. But at the same time, if they're there, and I don't know how much they're supposed to drive the action. Like, are they supposed to be crazed, loud the whole game? And it brought to mind the wrestling thing from last year. That poor kid that Kale threw under the bus because he said, we are, and everybody responded Penn State, which was that kid's best day ever. And Kale's like, well, if you can hear an 8-year-old cheering for us in the stands and he's the only voice, that's not good. So I don't know. Like, I don't understand fully what's my responsibility as a spectator at an event. And this weekend, stadium will not probably be as full as it has been at other times. Crowd could be a little more dopey. I don't know.
Is the Penn State I think there's several factors at play. I don't know if there's several issues at play. Is the Penn State basketball problem the fact that there's PTSD, which I agree with as somebody with that PTSD, or is the Penn State basketball problem the fact that it's just not a great environment, and they have an opportunity to build another environment, kind of like what Alex said. Like, and we talked about this before, and I don't want this to turn into like play games at Rec Hall segment, but that's what it's going to turn into. And I think the PTSD thing is very true, and I don't know that Mike Rhodes necessarily understands that. I also don't know that it's necessarily fair to him to conflate that of Pat Chambers
Right.
era and maybe even Micah Shrewsbury just up and leaving era onto him, because I think he's building a different, unique thing. But I think in some ways there are things that they could do to control that, or help build that, or force that. And I think it's more so not necessarily a crowd volume, it's a crowd density situation. And I think, I don't know, I think until Big Ten season comes around, like right now in football season, everybody's on football. Like that's what we're going to spend most of this podcast with. What we spent most of this podcast talking about. There's a reason we don't do basketball previews. We do football previews. You know what I'm saying? And I think that kind of goes back to that issue. The other thing I will say that I do probably struggle with that logic a little bit, or is in the face of that logic. I wrote down the word baseball in mine because Penn State baseball is given reason people to care, and I think I've always said that if you give Penn Staters a reason to care, they will show up, but you have to give them a reason to care. Football is enough of its own reason. Is that a messed up mentality? Maybe, but not everybody's going to be a perfect fan in our dream world.
Yeah, and I think whether it's PTSD, there's a lot of Missouri and Penn State fans too. Like, show me first, right? And
Yeah.
just now baseball, I might quibble with. Did they give them a reason to care? Or did they give them a reason to eat hot dogs?
Well, but there's a reason to care. That's a reason to
Okay.
care. Well,
Okay.
why aren't they doing it at the BJC? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think the Rec Hall thing. Forget bigger picture, because again, if they have the money to try to do something separate someday down the road, God bless them. But go ahead and make your return to rec game, or one of two return to rec games, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving break when students are leaving, right? Like, that's when this game was last week. It was last Wednesday. Some students are getting out of Dodge. It's going to be a sleepy night. Go ahead and address the density by playing that game as a return to, again, it's non-conference, so maybe nobody cares, but I don't know. I think there are probably different ways that you can battle that without saying, oh, our atmosphere is great. I just don't think you can. And I'm not saying he was blaming the fans, but you could see, it's not that far of a leap, right? Like, and I just don't think you can ever do that. Like, I think it's always got to be, hey, we're thrilled who's here. Hope they could be a little louder. I mean, I think he handled it well.
Yeah.
But there's so many factors, right? Is it on TV? Is it all those things, right? That you just want to try to get rid of as many of those as possible. And it's just interesting to me on the heels of Kale last year, right? There was that coming into football this weekend, which could be interesting. And then on the other side, Katie Schumacher Shawley, they're home with, was it Purdue, right?
Yeah.
And raving about the crowd they had. So it's kind of, so I guess what's the difference between women's volleyball and men's basketball?
See, and that is where I don't understand things, because I think that's also like you could actually put wrestling into the women's volleyball side of that, because niche sport, people really are passionate about Penn State women's volleyball. People are really passionate about Penn State wrestling. Penn State basketball, the number 2 revenue generator for the school's athletics program. And I struggle with that. Like, I do struggle. I don't understand that. I don't understand the why there. I guess the only other thing I would say, like going back to what you were saying, is like the grumbling. You have an opportunity to build something both with your results on the court, and I think Mike Rhodes is building something on the results on the court. But I think going back to the Rec Hall thing, like, you have a legitimate option on campus to do something about this. Like, I can't imagine that they're getting that many, like, they're going to lose out on that much money if they played 10 games at Rec Hall. Like there were not that many people there last Wednesday night. It's probably maybe even cheaper for them to set up and play in Rec Hall and have less staff there. And I just think
It would be interesting to know.
You could create an environment, right? Like, you can create, people are on top of you. It's louder. It's more intense. It's yeah. So No, I see what you're getting at there, though. Like,
But I don't know what, like, then you have fewer concessions, right? You're not selling beer in rec hall, and I don't know if that makes a difference, right? Like, I don't
sure,
know if
what?
10 games of beer sales is what, like, what's it worth? 10 games of average game, not well attended game beer sales or food, does it make a difference? Like, I don't know.
Are they selling beer for wrestling or anything at Rec Hall? Do they
I
have a
think if they're,
license?
I don't think at rec hall. I think
Okay,
if they're in the Jordan Center, yes, in rec hall, not yet.
because
We haven't. I wasn't there for the opener, so I don't know.
okay, something to keep in mind. No, I don't know, and maybe it's a sports thing. Maybe I've overconflated how important the sport of basketball is, and volleyball is more important in this state. But I don't know that that's necessarily true because I don't even think it's a state issue. I think it's a community issue, right? Like it's a center region issue because you're not going to drive unless it's a weekend game from Philly or Lancaster or York or wherever.
And the media used to make it an athletic department thing. Like, I think the media under previous regimes would say they cared more. Well, they wouldn't say this, but it's clear that they did care more about the basketball program than the
I
athletic
mean, they
department in some
did.
ways, right?
They
Well, right,
did.
what I'm saying. And I don't think that's the case anymore, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
that used to be something you could make an argument for. I think they care. I think it's a learning process. And I think you're right about, the past problems shouldn't be part of Coach Rhodes' situation, but the context probably matters for him to know,
Yeah.
right? Just to give that sense. It's kind of like we talked a few weeks ago now about, James Franklin knowing historic games in Penn State history. Oh, it was a game at Illinois sometime when they lost and came back, and there was something about
Right.
that. Like, he should know that chapter and verse, and Rhodes should probably know that PTSD exists in it, and it might go back more than just a couple coaches, right? It's like they used to complain years ago when they first got in the Jordan Center. Oh, well, it's going to rain tonight, so that's going to cut down the crowd. Oh, it's going to snow tonight. Like, staffers would legitimately talk about, we got our Saturday game, but it's snowing.
Right.
That's just Penn State basketball. Like, that was the mindset not all that long ago. So it's good that the mindset's changing.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It is. It's evolved. It's grown. It's improved. Okay. I feel better about that. We got a piece of fan mail, I guess would be the best way for that. From Jim, who is a good helped me out a lot with Nittanyville over the years when I was doing that. So we'll happily answer any of his fan mail and make it a segment specifically for him. He tweeted at us. Well, he tweeted it. He quote tweeted himself, but here's the initial gist of the tweet. This is going to come up so much this year, but conference championships are diminished. There's a 0% chance Penn State wants to play in the Big Ten championship game. And then he tagged us and says, I nominate this for a topic on Stuff Summer Says episode with Steve and Darian. I've been rattling, and I think this leads into our conversation kind of moving forward, because I think we can kind of start putting our sights on bigger picture stuff of multiple things. I'm very interested by conference championships because I don't know if they matter, and I don't know if they do matter. I don't know if they don't. I do think it's very fascinating right now from the fan perspective because everybody and their brother wants Penn State to have, including probably the two people on this podcast, want Penn State to have a home playoff game. If they go to the Big Ten championship, which is very feasibly can happen, and I'm going to say something later that you're going to be mad at, it can very feasibly happen. And then they lose to Oregon. They don't get that. I don't know that they're going to get that based on what's happening around the country. And if they win the Big Ten championship, then we don't get this moment of that we've all, like, everybody's bought in and won it. So that's where I'm going to say I don't want Penn State to go to the Big Ten championship. This is where I'm going to say I think Penn State's going to go to the Big Ten championship. I have had this sneaky feeling all year that something weird's going to happen in that Ohio State-Michigan game. I think Penn State laid the groundwork. I think all bets are off when those two teams play. I think it's a non-zero chance, and it's probably around a 40% chance, which is very high. Sorry, it took us 12 different directions.
No, that's it. So a Big Ten champ. Let me go. If Penn State making the Big Ten championship, no, I don't. I think fans don't want that because then they got to buy two expensive tickets. They know they got, in theory, right? They'd have to buy two. If they win, it wouldn't matter. If they win, they're elite, right? They've got to buy. They've clearly now one of the 4 teams, right? Like they've actually gotten over that hurdle. Um, I don't think they're as meaningful now as they were before. They just can't be, right? Because the playoffs matter. And I do think I think the championship games should matter too. Like I think before the drama of the SEC last week and those teams losing, and I still think this when they get to the championship game this week, whoever loses the SEC championship game should not be in the playoff. And I almost would kind of think that about the Big Ten, except it's not going to be if it's Ohio State and Oregon, that won't be the case.
Right.
Because but if it's Penn State,
it's not impossible, right?
Right. It's at some point the championships games, that's your play-in game. Like that's your opportunity to do it. No, I don't think. Why would Penn State want to in the new setup? Why would you want? James Franklin said today, well, we want to play as many games as we can, get as many opportunities. I call bull. I call BS on that. Like get healthy, get ready for the home playoff game, and go from there. But stuff could happen, right? I mean, Ohio State's in no matter what happens against Michigan, right?
Right.
So if for something's whatever, they're not going to play hard. But if something goes south and their season's not over, they're still going to get a chance because everybody will give them a break.
Right.
It was Michigan. It was the game. Like they've only lost one at a time, and like they'll get a bot. They'll get a pass on that. In terms of how that plays out. So no, I don't think any team wants to play in a conference championship game just because there's only. It's the same. It's just no ups. There's more downsides than there are upsides. Yeah, you win, you get a ring, you do some stuff. But man, if you lose, you're not only losing that, you could be losing out in the playoffs, and you were probably in a position to get to the playoffs before you played the game.
This is a James Franklin truth serum answer or question for me. Like I would want to know how he actually feels about it because he didn't tip his hand either way in the press conference today when he was specifically asked about it. I just think it's like, I don't know. I've been wrestling around with that a lot because I do think it's like nobody, kind of Jim's point, like nobody really was having a conversation about it. And then we kind of got here and they're like, oh, yeah, this is kind of a thing that could happen. And this is not terribly too different than 2016 when Penn State needed Ohio State to beat Michigan. And then all they had to do was take care of business a half hour later. And they did. And it's very interesting to me. I would not be as excited as I was in 2016. I still want to go because I think Indy's a great town and I think that stadium's really cool. But I don't necessarily.
I was just going to say the best part about the Big Ten championship game would be Indy.
Yeah, like it's
the town and the stadium, right? That's
it. They need, and I don't know that there's a fix to finding them to making them any more interesting. Like if you actually, I guess there is a fix. I think it's in the bylaws of the contract, of the like playoff rules. Like you said to me, okay, 1 gets the bye, or the winner gets the bye, and 2 gets preferred treatment for a home playoff. Like we'll just re-rank you as a 11-1 team as opposed to an 11-2 team. I think.
Well, but even if they just get in, right? Like I mean, like yes, but it'd be just be getting in because I think there's some situation. I mean, I'm sure the SEC folks would say like, look,
yeah, like if Penn State got smoked.
Texas A&M got in. They won. They beat Texas. They beat Texas the last game of the season. They get to the championship game. They lose. They got 4 losses. But gosh, look at their schedule, right? And I think that's where you'd get them in terms of the leagues participating. But for me, if the team's got 4 losses, I don't care how tough their schedule was, and I get it. But the objective of the thing is to win games, and the regular season has to mean something. The regular season has to mean something. I don't know that championships games need to mean something, right? So that's probably why I would be no, thank you.
The championship games are borderline bowl games of like we're just doing it for the sponsors.
Right, they're the conference tournament of NCAA basketball.
Right.
Like I always think it's crazy that you've played 25 games, 20 games during the regular season, and you're a 7th seed in the tournament. But if they get a run, they could make the NCAA tournament. Stop it. Here's their stuff. Like no, no, they should have done that tournament.
That's what we learned. Steve's going. We're going back to the rankings. And we're going to hand it out by the voters. That's what we're going to do.
There you go. Sure.
No, I think that was good. Okay. No, I'm glad we're on the same page about that because I think that's how a lot of Penn Staters probably feel about it, or at least I like a lot of Penn Staters about it. Okay. Well, that leaves us to our next comment, which is about the game that they would have to win, assuming that Ohio State does lose. that they would have to win, which would be against Maryland. And I think there's not necessarily all that much interesting X's and O's wise. I think Penn State again should handle its business. They're a 20-some point favorite. Yada yada yada. A little brother. Yada yada yada. But I think the most interesting, fascinating part, and you had texted me about this, and I said, well, it's the last normal regular season game inside this version of Beaver Stadium, and it's been a little emotional thinking about it. I think it's going to be an emotional Saturday for those reasons. People are probably going to be moved around the stadium. You're not going to necessarily watch the games with the same people and seat neighbors that you've got to watch the games with. And then there's also just like the visual change of Beaver Stadium, right? Like the next 2 seasons are going to probably be lower capacity, and then it's going to look different. Like it is going to categorically look different than the way it used to. And for my generation, it's funny. I found a picture the other day. We were going through some stuff in my mom's house in Altoona, and we found a picture of them putting the south end zone on, like building the south end zone while a game is happening. And I was like, I don't remember. I like vaguely remember it, barely remember it. So this is the first real big change in the 30 years that I can actually remember of Beaver Stadium, which I think is I don't know. I just think Saturday's going to be emotional. I don't know that people are necessarily prepared for it because it's going to be a little bit of a goodbye.
Yeah, I think there'll be some curiosity there. Not some curiosity, but some last time stuff, right? Because fans can get in. I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen the numbers yet on the number of people that have opted in and saying we want playoff tickets. But you don't have to pay anything extra now for this one to go check out, to see it for ostensibly the next to last time, unless they, something goes crazy. And I think people do have an emotional attachment to facilities where they see stuff and they've seen big things happen. So I think the fan, it's not about what happens in the field for me Saturday, because I think we know what's going to happen. It's about who shows up and how they turn out. And then Penn State fans have consistently impressed me in terms of that, whether it's that Michigan State game in 2003 that I point back to, that they go to Indiana and win, and then people come back on a dreary late November day and still show up in a good number. And then this is the third hunting season Saturday where people are like, well, what's that going to do to attendance? The last 2 times, now the number, I mean, it was the official number, so that means it was paid, but was 105 plus each time. So people are going to show up. It's going to be cold, might be a little snowy, might be whatever. But Penn State fans do that stuff. Plus, it's the last regular season game and the culmination of what's going to be a special season, right? The first playoff season. So they're going to want to be there and be part of that. So, but I think all of that is more interesting than what's going to happen. I mean, it should be more interesting than what happens in the field because they should take care of their business.
Well, it's funny because we were looking up the deer hunting season, which is just, as somebody that doesn't hunt, it's very fascinating to me. That is a big factor in all of this, but I'm sure it's something that Penn State pays attention to. But I think it's also the first time really since 2016 that like there can be a celebratory mood going into the final home game of the season, because it's Penn State's got a very real chance of being 11-1. And if they do that, they get to accomplish something that so many people have wanted for them. Saturday's a very interesting game emotionally.
You do a lot of stuff with game presentation. We do.
Yes.
Will Penn State be smart enough? Ohio State wins at noon. They're done by 3:30. Everybody knows that coming in. When Penn State wins and they're done, will there be a public address announcement? We'll see you all back here in 3 weeks for the first playoff game. This. Will that happen?
I thought it's funny you say that because that's how we think, and
they have to, right?
They
like,
have to.
Like if they don't, it's malpractice, right?
Do they? Okay, are they politically correct about it, or are they off script about it?
What's the off script way?
The politically correct is be sure to submit your request in case Penn State should host a college football playoff game in 3 weeks, or the incorrect off script way is what you just said. We'll see you here in 3 weeks for the playoff game. Wear white.
Well, I can get you in the middle of those.
Okay.
You can say we hope to see you here in 3 weeks for a playoff game. Okay. Right, because then it's on them. Like we hope you buy some tickets, and we hope that it goes our way, right? But you have to at least acknowledge it, right?
I think you do.
Okay,
I think you do, because I mean, I think that's even after 2016, right? Like I vividly remember like Big Ten East champions being on the scoreboard and
Mhm.
said we'll see you in Indy or something like that. I do think, I mean, Penn State is in if they win. Like it's guaranteed that Penn State is in. It's yeah. Like it would. There's going to be lawsuits if Penn State's not in, and
Oh no, if they
you
win,
know,
they're in. It just could be like if the Ohio State thing happens, right? Then you got to say we're going to the Big Ten championship game, and then you have that. So either way, there's a yes, our result,
and yeah.
but we'll
No,
see.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I hadn't. I think there will be. I think they have to.
Go ahead. I have one
Mm,
question.
Go ahead.
This is old school, new school, and it's hockey related too.
We calling it old guy, young
This,
guy?
we can.
Okay.
You want to do something first? We can make this old guy, young guy. Go
No,
ahead, that's
no. I
first.
just let's make this old guy, young guy because I don't have an old guy, young guy.
Okay, old guy, young guy, kind of hockey related, kind of Penn State football related. Game this Saturday against Maryland. Probably not going to be as many students there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just not going to be the case. What would you think of an announcement at the end of the first quarter? Fans, for those of you that are here, if you've got a seat and you'd like to move down to the student section, we welcome you to move down and hope you know that the student section means you're standing and cheering loudly. But if you want to have that student experience, please feel free to move down there. What would you?
I'd be okay with that. I like
okay.
that. We were at the hockey game this weekend and they made that announcement because it was people were leaving, and I thought I like that. I think there's plenty of Penn Staters there that didn't necessarily go to Penn State and never had that opportunity. Give them the opportunity. I think hell yeah.
I just think one of the weirdest things I've seen through the years is at this time of the season, their willingness to protect those empty seats in the student section. Like if somebody wants to come down and walk in there, they're like, no, you're not a student. I'm like, dude.
I've never thought about that, and I'll never unsee it that way.
It's just amazing to me. Like, how cool would this be for people to have that experience?
I think that's a really good point. Like, I agree with that. I now will never unsee it that way though. Of like, just like Paul Blart Mall Cop overprotecting his job. Of
yes,
you can't. You don't have a ticket. There's
you're not
10% full. Yeah, like
right. That's just crazy, right? So how cool would it be for those people who are there in 20-degree weather and snow to say, hey, this is your chance to be a student. We welcome you to move down. Just we request that if you're down there, act like a student. Be loud, be standing, and support the team.
I think that's a good call out. Any particular would there be anything that you would try to steal? I'm not condoning it, not saying I'm going to try to steal.
They're coming back for a game. You can't steal stuff from the playoff game.
Okay. Is there anything you're going to try to steal from the West Side playoff game?
No, because the stuff's all anchored.
I will. If my bleacher seat comes available on eBay, I will try to place a bid on it. I think it would be cool to have.
I think that's fair. I actually thought about this, right? Like, when the last game comes, would people take anything? But there's nothing to take. But you know what they could take, which I don't know how hard they'd be, easy they'd be, and they'd look good they'd look good in the game room. Is when you're walking out, all those little covers they have on like the railings that are now branded. Like, you see them because you walk by them, and now you're thinking how easy would it be to get one? Now you're thinking, I walk by there, would they notice, right? But those things would be cool in the game room. They're just basically slip covers, right?
Yeah, they are.
When those go missing, don't call us because it was an idea.
No. Could I sneak a bolt, like a ratchet set into Beaver Stadium for a football game?
No, I think when they wind you, they notice it.
Oh, I didn't notice that was there.
Sorry.
So okay, that's this week's podcast. All right, this week is obviously Thanksgiving week. I'm thankful for Steve. Thankful for everybody that's listened to this podcast this far.
Same.
We really do appreciate it. We've already eclipsed our traffic number for all of the 23 season this week or this year, and we still have I'm considering the bowl game a part of that. So
yeah, good.
I'm very, very excited and very thankful for that. I think that's cool. As a thank you to you, we will have a stuff sale this week. Probably try to do as much possible as 25% off, which is about the highest that we can go. Which is
that's not nothing. That's great.
Nothing. So That's the easiest way, as I've said before, to support the blog, which we really appreciate. Let's hope keep the lights on. Thanks to Alex for joining us. Thought that was a great conversation. We will have depth charts. We will have a game preview. I haven't decided if I'm going to write it on Tuesday. Last year I wrote it on Tuesday and published it Wednesday. I think I might save it for Thursday. But I am good. I think I am going to write about the stadium. I think that's I want to say goodbye. I think is the best way to say that, even if it's not really goodbye. So I think there's that. Any other stuff from Steve this week? Anything on your brain?
I was going to say my stadium to the playoff, but now you got me kind of scared. But we'll see. I can do it post-mortem because I went back and looked at the first day I went to the stadium as a Ute. So I looked that up, found the weather from that day and everything. So I may save that for the week after. So I have the spectator thing that I think I may flesh out a little bit.
Right. I think there's something there. Okay. That's about it from us. 5 stars, thumbs up, all of that. Website, on that website, it's called stuffsummersays.com. There's a section called With
Steve.
We have emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Perfect. And my Twitter handle is at stuffsummersays. Steve's is
at Steve Sampson.
See ya. Bye.